G'day guys, welcome back to the Inner City Hermit podcast. If you're enjoying the podcast and enjoying the content, make sure you head over to YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to the podcast, and make sure you subscribe and go over to social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that shit at Inner City Hermit Podcast and support the channel. My guest today on the podcast is probably one of the nicest human beings I've ever spoken to in my entire life, for real. I'm chatting with Connor Brooker, the lead singer of Bugs. Bugs is a local Brisbane band. They're doing amazing things currently. They've played Falls Festival. They've recently just done a Like a Version on Triple J. And they also just dropped their new track, Can't Get Enough, which is an absolute slapper. So, yeah, it was a really good chat, really good insight into the music industry, and a really good insight into, why musicians sort of make music and that sort of stuff. So I had a blast chatting to him. It was awesome. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. So peace out. Have a listen. Connor Brooker from Bugs. Yeehaw. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of the Inner City Hermit. I've got a really good guest today. I'm trying not to fanboy out here because I am a huge fan, but lucky enough I've sung along with this bloke a couple times at a few different gigs. But we have Connor Brooker, lead singer from Bugs. How are you, man?
G'day, good thanks, Matt. And how you doing?
Oh, excellent, man. Once again, appreciate you doing this, man. I know things are pretty wild for you guys at the moment, and I think they're pretty wild for everybody. So really appreciate you coming on and having a bit of a yarn with an idiot like me. So thanks, mate.
Not an idiot, man. I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me. It's a good time
thanks,
to
man.
do this kind of thing. What better time to do it than when everyone's stuck at home doing nothing?
That's it, man. That's it. And we're just sort of chatting before we sort of started this, and yeah, we're sort of just chatting about how weird it is and how fucked it is for some people, and how everyone's sort of just scrambling at the moment, trying to fucking keep their heads. So yeah, it is. I'm glad we're kind of recording this, letting people listen, and hopefully you can inspire a couple people as well.
Cross. Yes.
Hey man, the new one. So obviously Bugs just dropped a new banger, a new fucking banger. Can't Get Enough, man. Another fucking unreal one. Like, and I don't just say this because I'm a fanboy, but like super boppy. I love it, dude. What's the reception been around dropping that one?
Oh, crazy, man. It's so weird. Like, thank you for starters. That's really nice. I'm glad you like it. It's been really crazy. Like my phone, because I run all our social media. We're not like a band, or we don't have people working for us. Our manager basically is the only one. We have part of our team. So I just do all of our socials and marketing and majority of stuff like that. So it's pretty crazy because I get to see firsthand, I guess, people's messages and tags and all that kind of stuff, which is like just crazy, like overwhelmingly bigger in terms of like metrics, I guess, like numbers, much bigger than the previous single that we put out, which is the most successful one that we've ever done. So early indicators would be positive in terms of data, but I don't really give that much. That's more from a business perspective. I don't really give a shit about data. Like people are just liking it, and like people that follow us are like saying, yeah, that they really enjoy it. Like our Facebook group was going nuts the night that it came, like premiered on the radio and stuff, with people texting in and stuff. So I think we've got a really good, like genuine fan base that follows us for, I don't know, the right reasons. They're not just, and it's not like a drastically different song from anything that we've done sound wise. So I think it was hopefully not, I'm not trying to say it was just like a safe, easy song, but like, I don't know, it was fun, happy song. It's kind of on brand with everything that we've done. So I was hoping people would like it, but it's always nice when, it's actually overwhelming, to be honest, how well it's been going. Like I haven't been able to keep up with my phone the last 24 hours. It's been nuts.
That's unreal, man. Yeah, I was actually going to talk to you about that. You have just seeing a lot of like the reposts and stuff you do. You have such a supportive fan base. Like I honestly can't think of like anyone, even like going to gigs and stuff, man. Like it's such like the only word I could come up with is wholesome. It's fucking wholesome, man. Like I mean, I've been to, like, I went to the mountain. This is probably, I think this is a couple years ago, but the one you did at Black Bear, like
I was
ages
going to
ago,
point
bro.
that out.
Ages ago, man.
I
Like
remember
so
seeing
long.
like a video of you tagged in the like someone was filming from like it crammed in the back corner, and they panned like around the crowd. It was like the first time I knew you existed. They just like panned to you next to them in the crowd, and you were just screaming like the words to the song. You just looked so like jubilantly happy. It was like so infectiously cool and like happy watching that video. That's what like I'm lucky I get to see that the day after and interact with people after that. So yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, go on.
yeah. No, no, no,
Sorry to
no, no.
interrupt you.
100%. I was literally about to say, I was just singing, sitting there, screaming my lungs out to Instant Coffee, which is by far my favorite song fucking ever. But yeah, I just like the vibe of going to sort of a Bugs show is so like everyone's bopping, there's no like everyone's just so friendly and nice, and I feel like that comes from you guys. You know, you come on stage and like it's just a good vibe, and I feel like, you know, that sort of spreads into your fan base. Like your fan base are just so supportive, everyone's so loving. Like it's really cool, you know, coming from, you know, the music scene where it's like there is some shit that goes on. Going to a gig like that is so refreshing sometimes. Like it's so nice.
We're really lucky. It's like obviously, yeah, we do make a concerted effort and like make a choice to like promote and like we want our gigs to be those kind of places anyway, because that's the kind of space that I've always enjoyed as a music lover and consumer. But at the same time, it's it doesn't just come down to us. It comes down to like, yeah, the people that follow us and the people that I guess we targetedly attract them to our music, sure, but at the same time, like a lot of bands still do targetedly approach good people and like good demographics, but still just like a lot of people love jumping on board a bandwagon to just fucking be relevant and not really get, I guess, the like ideology behind it or kind of like the community around it. Say when you start to get more of attention from like more commercial, I guess, avenues, then more people kind of jump on board your music for the fact it's a fad as opposed to for reasons that actually like really mean something to them. And the difference between those, like there's still both valuable people to have love your music, but at the same time, I think the core group that follow you from an earlier stage and really invest passionately in you, they're the kind of people that do come to our gigs and create that sense of community. And I'm not saying the other people aren't welcome, but that's when you can kind of have that risk of outliers that come in and like don't really understand the dynamic that you're trying to put forward. So at the same time, I think we're really lucky that we've just always had people, like good people, be attracted to our music. And at the same time, like that helps, I guess, police bad behavior at your shows in a way. We've never had to be super narky with yelling at people to get out, and like we've never had like to my understanding, a case of sexual assault or anything like that at our gigs. Like, and they would mortify me if it did happen, and I'd do everything I can in my power to mitigate the risks of that happening. But at the same time, to be realistic, like shit people exist, and those minorities do exist in every facet of society. The bigger scale that you definitely get to, the more risk that you have of them coming in. But we're just lucky, I guess, that it's been a slow build in that way. Like we've just kind of gradually accumulated people that have really, I guess, meant something to us, and vice versa. And then there's, I guess, a rapport and an understanding, as opposed to like, yeah, there's like a feeling that people get it when they're in the room at our gig. And I think like 80 to 90% of the people just kind of know what that is and how to behave, and yeah, to be friendly, to be accommodating, to be like respectful of other people. Just simple stuff that really shouldn't have to be promoted.
I think that's the hardest thing, you know, like when you see like any sort of gig or anything like that, and you have to see the artist, like sort of in a way, like, you know, I sort of liken it to like, obviously because I'm a teacher, I liken it to like a classroom, like having to come down on people and be like, you shouldn't do that and you should know better. And you're like, we're adults, like how the fuck is this not common sense? You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like for artists, it puts you in a shit spot too, because, you know, you want people to be safe at your gigs. And if you hear something like that, like, Yeah, fucking oath. It definitely would sort of, it definitely would fuck with you 100%.
I think hopefully that's I guess the basis of what you're trying to achieve by creating that community is that 99% of the people in the room would feel the same way. So they'd feel compelled to act upon it and help you. So, you have power in numbers, and the more eyes you have looking out for that kind of bullshit, then the more chance you have of getting onto it early. So I think it comes from being vocal about it obviously helps to make people more aware of it as well. But at the same time, I don't think we necessarily need to be that proactive with it after such a long time, because our fan base kind of gets it. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks, but I'm very lucky. I've never had so much issue with it. At our last, we had our album launch at the zoo in November last year, and I had to stop and kind of get cranky at this bloke, because they were just bumping into trying to start a little circle pit and stuff. I don't even know where I land on crowd behavior is such a weird gray area, because I've crowd surfed. I've done stuff like that in the past. I've never willfully tried to hurt someone, but I've bounced off people and danced, I guess what people would say is violently, in the past when I was younger. So I'd feel like a hypocrite just standing there being like, you suck. It works with kids. I mean, from your experience, you'd understand that embarrassment works with kids, but with an adult, it doesn't work. And a lot of the time with that kind of personality type, they love being singled out and being center of attention. So it's it just sucks, and you have to manage it in a way where you're trying to educate as opposed to belittle someone for something, because they're already doing it. If they're already in the action of doing it, they already have that psychology that it's acceptable. You need to change that, and you're only going to do that by being compassionate as opposed to trying to embarrass an adult in front of hundreds of people. It's just
and I mean, there's also, it's a time and a place thing too. I've been in June rats pits where you expect that if you get in a circle there, of course it's gonna you're gonna have people bouncing around, but there's times where you don't need that shit. You know what I mean? There's times, coming from back in the day when I was an angsty teenager, obviously there was the hardcore scene, Crowbar and all that sort of stuff. And, you go in and you chuck a two-step or whatever. But I think there's people who get that and they can do that at some gigs, and then they'll take it to another gig and then just automatically just start throwing themselves around. And you're kind of dude, it's it's not really the vibe that you kind of have to, I guess you just have to assess the situation and be probably not a good idea to start throwing arms right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you can just kind of, usually it's a younger kid. That's the thing. You can usually just pull them aside, and as an older, particularly as an older male, you can often if you're not doing it in a confrontationally degrading way, you can often just kind of get through to someone. The amounts of times I've just literally grabbed someone out of the crowd that's been bouncing into people and been like, mate, stop, you're hurting these girls around you and stuff. And they've been a 19-year-old dude, and they're just and they're just kind of taken out of they're just like a puppy. They're just excited, and they're not thinking about what they're doing. They're not actively making a choice to do that, just like I wasn't when I was doing that as a kid. So at the same time, I think the culture has shifted. Yeah, when we were younger, there was a lot more of it. But I think as we're starting to get older, you start to lose your perspective of it being more acceptable when you're in that demographic. Because when you're 18 to 21, no one really gives a shit about doing that kind of stuff. And I think it's duty of care on the older community to kind of look at teenagers and people who've just come into that gig scene, clubbing scene. They don't really understand that social etiquette. It should be more of an education and a compassionate process as opposed to embarrassment and confrontation. Those things are just not often very, very plausible ways to come about a positive change.
Yeah, well, I've seen other sort of the other end of the spectrum, seeing for example, the guy from Story So Far, when he just jumped in the crowd and started beating the crap out of some bloke, and you're probably legit Parker Cannon just jumped in the crowd. You didn't like this guy, it was just doots, and you're well, I see your point, but probably not the best way to go about it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that's just basic. If your resolution to something you don't like is violence, then you're instantly just morally in the wrong.
Yeah, that's it, man. Literally, you're just it's like trying to put fire on fire. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think some artists get that weird complex because they get so almost entitled to their art being attached to them as a person. So they feel like, yeah, personally and morally offended when those kinds of things happen. And that's why they act like quite in an insulted way. But like, you got to remember that your platform is like a massive privilege as opposed to the opposite. Like, you're lucky to be there saying these things and being listened to as opposed to the opposite. So like, actually pay credit to the audience in a way, and like understand that people are going to process things, like understand things, communicate things in different ways. So you're not always going to understand the way that people enjoy your art. You don't always have to accept it as appropriate, but at the same time, acting like that's just insane. Like,
yeah, it's wild,
running
man.
into the audience and punching someone.
Dude, and it's happened on multiple occasions. There's another one where he punched a security guard and you're like, I want to like you, man, because I like your music, but fuck.
How is he allowed to like tour? Like, I swear countries wouldn't let him in with visa stuff eventually.
Yeah, as like a pretty big The Story So Far fan, I've heard some things, and it's a little bit like the Sticky Fingers complex, man. Like, you know, I love Sticky Fingers music, but I fucking hate her.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I can't like justify any, like, you know, the first thing, you know, I love their new music, I love their old music, but I just can't justify liking them after. It's not like one story or two story, it's like multiple stories where you're like, oh, like,
yeah,
you know, these guys have a reputation of being fuckwits. So you're like, oh, you know, but it's hard like that.
It's hard. It is really, really difficult, that whole cancel culture, the climate of like, that's what I mean with the whole confrontation and degradation not being necessarily like a positive way to move forward. At the same time, that like there are instances, say for example, the Sticky Fingers, and there's a slew of them. It's become much more prolific since, for example, things like the Me Too movement have made it much more of like a forefront in the psyche of society, which is a positive thing. People that act like shit should be absolutely held to account. I think there's a due process in which you should do that. And I think at the same time, it's a very difficult one because the legal system fails victims of sexual abuse and other areas where this is, it's just intertwined basically. Like, it's a very complex problem. And I think you've just got to take what you hear and like all that kind of hearsay with a bit of a grain of salt, because yeah, sometimes someone can just be saying something manipulative to destroy someone's career. I've had it happen to people that I'm friends with when they've been completely innocent, and it's a horrible, horrible process, like incredibly depressive, like kind of thing to go through as an individual. I couldn't imagine personally what it would be like, but like at the same time, I've been on the other side and defended people that I'd thought I'd had a personal relationship with, which was basically just respecting them, defended them to people that have basically been victims of that person's abuse without having listened in the past. And that's been something that's hit home really hard with me, because like, yeah, I guess I've like I always wanted to believe the best in people. That's something I was taught from a young age. And I think that's not a negative quality to have as a person. But at the same time, you have to, with that, check yourself and really like listen. You've got to listen to people when they're saying something, and hear them out, and you've got to take it on board, regardless of whether you think it's true or not. Like, it's so difficult. Like, I personally loved Sticky Fingers. I'd played with them 2 or 3 times, and through that had instantly already kind of felt a bit off. I won't go into personal details, but I was kind of a bit disappointed with the ways they were as people. It was even worse. Like, after one gig we played this festival in Coolum, and Soho were playing like last. I was standing side of stage, and the Stickies guys were next to us, and bloody Seamus like pegged a full beer can at a cop's head, and the cop like was in the crowd and thought that it was me because I was standing side of stage next to Seamus. So he came and grabbed me and was hassling me, basically assaulted me and shit. And then the Sticky Fingers guys were just pissing themselves laughing, thought it was hilarious. And
yeah,
like I've got like 5 other instances of personal experiences where they behave like that. So I guess there's a lot of situations where people will have a lot of money and success, and they can put PR behind it to spin themselves as angels or having made mistakes. And people make mistakes, but you got to have consequences for your mistakes.
Yeah, man, and especially when it's ongoing, and
Yes.
it is disappointing because you have some people who are so talented, and their music is so like it's honestly amazing. Like you can't take that away from them. Like their music is awesome, but to have that attached to it, you're just like, fuck. Like it really puts a dampener on when you're listening to it, because you're like, this is such a awesome song. Like, Australia Street, man, there's nothing better than cracking tinnies to Australia Street, but not being out doing that and going, oh man, this is kind of off. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
like it's hard. It's really hard, and it took me a long time to kind of like, I guess, get past my own like, I guess, problem with like, I guess, treating it really maturely. If I'm being honest with myself, because at the end, I just can't listen to artists like that anymore. And honestly, there's some of them where they've written some of my favorite songs in the last 5 years in Australia, and that's so painfully depressing. But again, from my experience with knowing individuals that write music and play in bands, and more so songwriters, there's a certain percentage that do, I guess, draw a lot of their, I guess, power in their songwriting from the fact that they are a deeply emotional person. At the same time, people that are that deeply emotional can be quite troubled and use it to manipulate other people. It's a kind of mutually exclusive personality trait a lot of the time. So I think it's almost like this, like, such a frustrating, like, hypocritical thing that shouldn't have to happen, but like that's almost why they are so good at what they do, is because they're a kind of fucked up person, really. And
yeah, man,
it's a massive shame. And the only thing that you can hope is that those people like actually look at themselves in the mirror and actually kind of like think critically about mistakes that they've made, as opposed to kind of just brushing over them for the convenience of wanting to continue what serves them, which is just playing music and having fun and making money out of it. Like, there's a lot more if you're doing it and your music is not, if it's achieving such negative things for so many people, I don't think it's worth doing, if you ask me. But at the same time, some people feel like they're backed into a corner and don't have a choice. Sticky Fingers, prime example. They've done nothing else their whole lives. Like, what do you think they're going to do? All get jobs at cafes and like.
Yeah, exactly right.
They're never going to stop. And the proof's in the pudding. They can still sell out River Stage. So I guess it's more of like, I guess my gripe is with overall society having that like, oh yeah, it's okay, they suck, but I'll still give them my money. It's like, there's people that are so morally righteous that I think are artistically much better that will never even get like a quarter of a millionth of the light of day that they do. So I think that there's like, it's easier to find someone genuine and who needs the support, and it takes a bit of time, and it sucks. It's hard, and it's taken years for me to not listen to those songs that I love, but now I just don't. I can't, because it defeats the purpose of music for me. If the person making it is evil, then like, I don't want to be supporting that as a person. And it's not easy.
Yeah, 100%, man. It really is. It really is difficult, because you feel like, and songs have this way of sort of having this nostalgic feeling. Like, you hear a song and you go back to the festival that you heard at, and you remember how much of an amazing time it was, and to let go of that memory as well is so hard too. So yeah, like literally, like it's you hear a song and you're like, fuck, like I can't believe like the whole memory and the feeling around this song is so different now, because like I know what I know, you know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway,
I'd say just personalize it quickly, like just treat it like as if it's like a relationship, not a relationship, but like, in the same way, the reason why you've loved the song is because it's made an emotional connection with you. The person making that emotional connection with you isn't true to themselves, and they're not so they're basically gaslighting and manipulating you. They're like falsifying their persona to make that connection with you, so it defeats the purpose, if you ask me.
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a really powerful way to look at it. Like,
I'm just like, it defeats the purpose if the person's just like corrupt as an individual. Like, that connection doesn't mean anything to me anymore, because the only reason they made that connection is because they were able to manipulate me into believing they were something that they aren't. And I'm smarter to see through that as a consumer, I guess, in
Yeah,
everything,
no,
like
no.
in fashion, all that kind of stuff. Like it goes into all
Yeah,
different.
so true. So true.
Anyway.
It does literally it goes into everything. Okay. Now, here's something I wanted to talk to you about only because I was there. And okay, so let's flash back a couple years, right? It's Falls Festival, okay?
Oh God,
You are the
no!
unearthed band. It is scorching hot. It's about 12:30. I've had about 6 beers. I say, guys, we need to go watch this band. Trust me, you'll love them. I bring 6 of my fans to the stage. Had you ever played like a festival was that your first massive, like, because that's huge, like Falls Festival,
Yeah.
that's huge. How was that sort of, I didn't really know of Bugs. Like I sort of knew them leading up. Like I saw a couple of videos on Facebook. I saw Neighborhood on Facebook, fucking loved it. And I was like, sweet, let's go. Let's see what these boys are about. What was that feeling like going to playing Falls? Like, how did that feel?
So nice. It was so surreal. Like still like we did it again just this year gone, 2 years later, and it's like just as, I guess, a little bit more comfortable. But that time it was the first big, I think it was the biggest festival or show that we'd played ever at that point. And I guess you don't know what to expect because you're playing an early slot. As you said, it was like 12:30 in the day on New Year's Day, I think, or New Year's Eve or something.
It was the day. It was the day. I think it was New Year's. I think it was.
I think it was,
day.
yeah.
So you started like one of the biggest days, which is insane.
Yeah. But even I thought that people, like, if you're playing that early, I just thought people would be still hungover and sleeping in their tents and stuff. And like, we were just the unearthed band. Like, we're not like a draw card band or anything. Like, I knew that like our friends that were at the festival were obviously going to come and see us, and then people that knew who we were would come and see us. But I guess I didn't realize how far-reaching the whole Triple J effect was. Well, I'd assumed it in the past, but you don't really like have it eventualize in front of you until it's physically there. Like, you kind of think of like, because when you win the Unearthed thing, you get put on rotation for 3 months. I think leading into the festival, you get the spot, so all your socials start to kind of peak up a little bit, and like you get more attention. So you start to feel that kind of like, oh, well, this is like a bit different going into it even. But then from that lead up to just walking out on stage on the day was crazy. Like, I could not fathom how many people were in the tent and like came to watch us. And it was just, I was really stressed beforehand because it was like 42 degrees and we were really like hot, and it was hilarious. Like, our manager had parked in some weird spot that like blocked a gate. So in the back, like one of the grounds managers was like yelling at us like 10 minutes before we were meant to be on stage, just like abusing us, being like, "You fucking idiot, you shouldn't fucking be here." And I was like really flustered, and I was like, "I'm really sorry because I don't want to piss anyone off. Like, you're just trying to be like," he was just being a dick. But I just didn't want to piss anyone off. And I was just like, that. And I was like, "Okay, I'll move your car, Ruby," even though I don't have my license. So I like tried to move her car, and it was a manual, and I was just like, "Fuck, I've got to go get her." And like, jumped out of the car, and my phone fell out of my pocket and completely smashed the screen. And I was just like, ah! And then like, eventually like ran up onto stage. And I don't know if you remember, but I fell on my face, like literally.
No, I remember that. I did.
Because I was wearing socks. I only wear socks, and the stage is like not carpeted. It's like gloss coated wood basically. And I was wearing socks. It was 40 degrees, and I just went to stand on my pedal.
It was so funny. I thought initially.
Yeah, it was really funny. It was so funny. It was funny in hindsight.
Because in hindsight, it would, like, at the time you would have been stressing. I could totally imagine, dude.
So mortified. And I knew I didn't have a spare guitar, so I had to catch it as I was falling. So I literally had to face plant because I had to hold the guitar, and I was like.
But it sort of added, like, it sounds silly, man, but it sort of added to like the fun. Like, I was there and everyone was like, "Oh, is he okay?" And then you got up, you're like, "Yeah," and then we kept going, and that's when I was like, "This is gnarly. Like, this is so sick." Because I remember, man, I remember being in the crowd, and I got there, and there was like a good amount of people already, and then you're bopping away, you're having to sing. I turn around as you finish, man, and there's like. It went so much. I was at the back, and it went so much further back at the end. I was just like, this is Like, this is wild. This is crazy.
That was literally just instant coffee. We played that last.
I
remember
dude.
everyone just like that was on the fringes of the tent, like on those hills. It was like one of those classic like moments that you picture in your dreams kind of thing. Yeah, we played the last song that the radio had on rotation, and everyone that was like just sitting outside the tent and kind of on the edges, they all just started sprinting in. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to have people like you.
Yeah, well, that was
really
because
cool.
I knew two songs. I knew Neighborhood, which I think you sort of opened, or it was earlier on in the set, because that was the
Yeah.
big one that I think a lot of people knew. And I think if
Pretty sure
people
that's the
sort
one
of
I fell over on as well.
yeah. And yeah, and then from there, like I think if you looked at Neighborhood, Instant Coffee was the next one that sort of popped up if you looked on YouTube. So I was the same. And Instant Coffee's just got that vibe that it's so easy to sing. And it's so fun to sing too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think,
Oh yeah.
man, like Beer and Cider, man, I got on some random dude's shoulders and I was just going hard at Instant Coffee. It was so
How
sick.
good was that gig? That was so sick. I
Man,
couldn't
you know,
believe that.
I wasn't even going to go to Beer and Cider. I didn't realize it was a music festival. I thought, oh, it's just like drinking and stuff. And then I saw like Smith Street Band were on, you were on. I was like, this is wild. This is like
Yeah.
a new amazing music festival. And then I just remember, because that was my girlfriend's little brother. That was his first ever festival. And he got on the same dude's shoulders, knew none of the words, and was just going crazy, man. It was so
That's so
sick.
good. That's
Yeah,
unreal.
yeah, yeah.
They did really
It
well
was,
with that.
it was
Like
good.
I don't know what, yeah, how you just make it. I don't know how they have the budget even for it. I guess there's a lot of money in beer and alcohol and margins like that, but it was crazy. I was like
Yeah,
crying that morning because we went to practice beforehand, and I'd like got caught in like an Uber for like an hour and a half going to Indooroopilly from Spring Hill, and it was just like cost me $60 or $70, and I was really poor. And I was like, I'd had like 3 hours sleep the night before, and was just really like in a not a good spot. And then we were trying to practice, and the guys were like, "Come on, we got like this gig this afternoon." And I just like started crying in front of all of them because I was just like so sad and like feeling really just like, fuck this, why am I fucking doing any of this shit? And I just had a big sulky tantrum. And then they all just kind of like hugged me and like spent the next few hours cheering me up. And then we went and just rolled in. They're like, it's all right, man, we'll just go in. This gig doesn't matter. It's just like some weird beer festival. There's probably going to be no one there. It's the middle of the day. Like, we'll just roll in, play it. We'll go home, take care of you and stuff. And then like we got there, and I just saw how many people were there when we were getting ready, and I was like, woo! And just completely 180 my whole mood, and was just the best day ever. Like
oh man, it looked like you guys
I
had
was
the
so
best time.
I was so lucky because yeah, I'd gone from like polar opposite extremes of emotion when it comes to music of like, why am I doing this, to like, this is why I'm doing this so clearly in
Yeah.
one day. It was real nice, a nice slap in the face to really remind me of how lucky I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of nice, like having that you have the I don't want to, and then you're doing it, and you're just like, this is why I do this. Like, this is the best.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
it's like anything, man. It's like when you go for a run, or like when anyone who has an extracurricular commitment or like something, a passion's like great, but like after your 9 to 5, it takes commitment and hard work to continue developing those things. It's like
Yeah,
anyone. So
man.
you got to really love it. And sometimes you're too tired to love it, and you can't blame yourself for that because capitalism sucks. And like we all have to pay a wage, and we have commitments outside of that kind of stuff, family, friends, blah, blah, blah. You got to be a human.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at the
that's it.
same
I think
time, yeah, don't be
yeah,
so hard on
that's what
yourself.
people
I
sort
reckon.
of have to understand. Like, it doesn't just come to you. Like, it's passion, it's hard work, it's everything. Like, you know, I've seen your videos of when you were like singing the Daria theme song in, you know, someone's garage, like, or someone's room. Like, it seeing from like that to where it is now, it's amazing to see sort of it flourish into exactly what you wanted, you know?
I'll link you to the YouTube covers of me when I was 16 on the little acoustic guitar singing like Jack Johnson and stuff.
Yes.
There's a whole other
Oh,
era. Like I've been, I don't know, I did that stuff when I was all through my teenage years. I was like YouTube cover dude. All my friends thought I was so lame for it, and like all my male friends were like, "You fucking go loser, rah rah," and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I've just always loved music and not really cared about people judging me for that.
yeah.
And I don't know, just always trying to get better. Like I don't expect to be where every goal I've had for like music or our band or like my career in that perspective has always shifted and moved as you've reached each step. You realize there's always more to do, or there's somewhere else. Like your perspective grows, so then your horizon is further away. No matter how hard you're working or how quickly you're progressing, you still like have that ever unattainable horizon when it comes to music, which is really that's what I love about it. It's so cool.
It's never ending, man. You can just keep going and get sort of lost in it, which is really exciting. Like it's
you wait 5 years and we have the $20,000 production budgets for our videos and stuff.
Oh, mate, can't wait for it.
I think I'm being a bit wishful.
I feel you, man. I still have dreams of having an amazing studio where I can just record podcasts with like a whole bunch of crazy people. It'd be so cool.
Dreams, man. You got to have something to work towards.
That's
and
it.
Like everything starts as a dream, really. Sorry, I'm saying cliche.
So
Russell Brand now.
So speaking of covers, I think you know where I'm going with this one. You did, yeah, exactly right. You did Triple J like a version. How that's wild. That's another huge step. Like I feel like you're just leaping from massive step to massive step. So obviously Mallrat, Charlie, brilliant song, brilliantly covered. Good. I would say it's how was that whole experience, man?
It was, again, like I use the word surreal a lot, but that's honestly how a lot of this kind of stuff in the last 12 months particularly has been. It's like just so, you have like, I don't know, it's like a dream like that you've always kind of envisioned, and it's really interesting going through the process and then comparing all of your expectations versus the reality. With the like a version stuff, I'd say that it personally exceeded my expectation in terms of like the experience as a whole. Like it was incredible. It was the most stressful experience I've ever been through, but at the same time, that's not from anything that Triple J have done. They were amazing with the way that the production crew was so accommodating, friendly, patient with us. Everything was so professional, and not in a way that it made you feel like in a sterile, like manufactured environment. People just knew what they were doing, which is as a musician, that's really comforting to have like all of the variables set so you can kind of just do what you do and not have to overthink it. Sounds like a cliche, but it's pretty true. But it was just
puts you in a good space. I think you just need a good space. Like anything where you're being creative and you're putting something out there, if the environment's kind of shitty, it affects it. So the fact that like, you know, that's sort of what I get when I see those Triple J like versions. Like I see the room, it just seems so like natural. It doesn't seem really forced, which is really cool.
Well, you know, that's what I need. Like it's like as a product, I hate using words like that when it comes to music, but it's business at the same time. But as a product, it's like their like most valuable thing. You got to remember they're a taxpayer funded station, and they have this massive international reach through something that they've effectively conceptualized and created themselves. Like the like a version thing is totally unique to Triple J and Australian radio. Like, and in terms of its reach, in terms of like it's how much it means to the Australian music community as well. Like there's nothing else in the world you could compare to it. So you really understand why they take it so seriously. So I never thought that we'd be like, as a musician, you're always self-deprecating from like a song you've just written, you're like, this sucks, to like to the point where, this kind of stuff where you're always looking at your peers and going like, but there's so many people I admire that haven't had the opportunity, or like, does that mean that I'm good enough, or like, because they've given us this chance, does this mean we're like at a certain level of like professionalism? I don't think it's important to look too much into that. It's just like, take it for what it is and be appreciative that you're getting to experience it at all for whatever reason. Like the whole thing was just mind-boggling, and we got the rave tapes guys included because we just wanted to hang out with our friends basically and involve as many people that we love in the experience, because the whole thing was just so like mind-boggling, from getting the text saying that we were going to do it to like actually wrapping it in the studio, then to actually going through the process of like the reception was just, it's been so nuts.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Like, you know, seeing it's really cool, and bringing it back to sort of your fan base as someone who really loves bugs, like in myself, seeing you guys do well and get called up for those things is like exciting for me as a fan. Cause
that's the best.
Seeing from you guys, from like sort of noticing you guys on Facebook, to seeing you at Falls, to seeing you at Beer Insider, to Mountain Valley, the Black Bear gig, to every, like even down to when I saw you at the Triffid, like as a fan, seeing you guys grow and get better and better and better and get recognized is awesome for a fan too. Like you feel a part of it as well. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, that's one thing. I'm not just saying that because you pointed it out to me. I think I said it in a previous interview that someone had emailed us a few weeks ago, but they asked what the best thing about the live version experience was. And I said pretty much that the validation that people that have supported us have gotten from, I guess, industry metric of success, something that you can show your friends, something that your mum messages you, and because she's had 50 people like message her and go, oh, I saw your son's thing, like things that like, I guess that, yeah, can show that you've achieved something. And like, it's more so for our fan base to enjoy, and like seeing how much people loved it and reacted to it. That was the real benefit from it, I guess, for me. Like a massive influx of new fans, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a lot of other benefits that are really cool and I really still appreciate. But the one that gets me the most is, yeah, seeing people that have supported us for years, like have that kind of moment with us. And like, it's like such a shared communal feeling. And again, it comes down to that community and the fact that we spent years just like sticking to our guns and being really genuine about what we're trying to achieve. I think that's part of why we've gradually grown these people, and that's why they feel so connected to it. And that's why it feels like such a big win when something like this happens, because like we've been a band for like nearly six years now, kind of thing. And all of this more, I guess, drastic spotlight's been shone in the last 12 months. And a lot of people that have been there the 5 years beforehand are feeling really like, yeah, validated in their commitment. And that's really cool, because when you love something and you campaign for it against your friends being like, oh, this band's shit, I don't care. And like, you try to drag them to a show and they don't get on board. And then eventually, like one day they might send you a message coming full circle that they've like they're like, oh, you heard the new Bug song kind of thing. I think we're the kind of band where we're more of people either love us instantly and they get it, or they hate us, and that's fine. I'm so okay with that. Like, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, but I feel like you have to be like that, eh?
Yeah, I think if you're somewhere in the middle, there's still a place for you, but like you're not really hitting an extreme enough point. In a way, if people aren't hating you, then you're not being like clear enough about what you're trying to do in a way as well. At the same time, people are just going to hate you for whatever reasons, and that's cool as well. I'm usually interested when people don't like my music. I'm just like, cool, yeah. Can you explain it to me? Rather than just being like, this is shit. If you can explain why it's shit, I can either try and like arrive at a like conclusion as to why you think that because of what you've experienced and what you like, or it could just be literally because something that I've done with the songwriting isn't smart and stuff. Like I'm really logical about the way I think about stuff like that. I don't get offended, because I've had people like tell me to kill myself when I was 14 on YouTube comments and stuff. Like I don't. It's people don't like music. That's fine, and if they want to say that kind of stuff, it says a lot more about them than the person.
And I feel like it's anybody in a creative sort of instance. Like, man, I get it. Like, dude, I'm a 25-year-old dude with a podcast. Can you imagine the shit that I get on a daily basis? You know what I mean? But it is what it is. I don't care. Like, if you care too much, then you're gonna be miserable. You just gotta be like, well, you know, it's amazing seeing. Like, you would have definitely had this, but seeing people who sort of dismissed you at the start all of a sudden go, oh, hey man, I really like what you're doing now. And you're like, you didn't like it at the start, mate. Like, what's changed your mind? You know what I mean?
That stuff's always so funny. It's like, I'd like to say it's not rewarding in a way, because I'd like to be a bigger person than that, but it is satisfying when you do.
Oh yeah.
I guess twist someone around kind of thing, from a point where it's, I don't know. I think more so from the fact that you've seen them kind of grow and not be so big-headed, because I've been that person. And I'm still that person with things. I don't acknowledge that. I'm not entirely perfect, and that's in that regard. I'm judgmental. I'm bitchy sometimes. I make mistakes like that. So I don't know. I get why people sometimes feel like they have a point to prove, and I don't take it that personally. Like you would as well. Again, it's
Yeah,
if you
for
love what you're
sure.
doing, then it doesn't really
Yeah, who
matter if
cares?
other people love it. Like it's cool if they
That's it.
do, but it's not
Well,
what
yeah,
you're
there's
effectively
I
doing
saw
it
a
for.
yeah, I saw a quote last night where it was like, if nobody hates you, then nobody will love you, which makes sense because you know
Oh
what I mean.
yeah,
Like if nobody hates you, it means you're not reaching enough people. Like if
yeah,
people find you and don't like you, then you're reaching a lot of people, and usually it's more good than bad. So you know,
yeah.
it comes
And
and
you'd
goes.
rather be an honest representation of yourself, even if it's extreme, as opposed to just a watered down, I don't know, falsified, safe personality, which is what I'd say. I'm not trying to be degrading of society, but I'd say 75% of people that I meet almost, I'm just kind of like, what are you? Like, you're not yourself. You're a fabricated representation of all these things that society's thrown at you to make you feel like you have to form an identity, but you haven't really thought introspectively about your wants and your desires and what actually serves you. Like a lot of people that I meet, I find it like that. And perhaps I'm the same and I'm just a hypocrite. I'm open to that as well.
Who
Like,
knows, man? Who knows? The world's
who
crazy.
knows? I just wish people were like more like, I think this situation we're in is a really cool chance for people to actually look at themselves and look at what they love. And like, I wish a lot more people would sacrifice things like money and things like, yeah, comfort for love and like passion, because there's not enough of those two qualities in the world. And that's why I seek out music, and that's why I consume myself in that community and world, because that's one that is overwhelmingly abundant in it. But yeah,
Yeah, man.
in greater
That's
society, it's like, oh,
yeah. It's really powerful, man. Yeah, I love that. I think that's so true, 100%, especially in this time, because you know it's crazy. It's this time now, like with everything that's going on, the quarantine, all that sort of stuff. I think it's gonna be a bit of a wake up call to a lot of people about like, you know, what am I doing, or who am I, or what am I about, and they can sort of, you know, I guess find themselves in a bit of a way, because you know adversity sort of builds character in a way.
oh hell yeah, that's like such a good point. I think it's really interesting, especially at the moment, seeing how people react. Again, yeah, like what you said, resilience is like a defining characteristic. Like in the face of resilience, it shows what kind of person that you are, and like when you've been thrown change out of your control, how you react to it's, yeah, again, a good metric of what you're made of as a person. Not to say that people who are struggling at the moment are not validated in that. Like it's fucking tough at the moment. I don't expect people to just know how to fix all of this shit immediately, but it starts with making an effort to know yourself. And I think that's like what people should be focusing on at the moment with so much time, especially like
Yeah.
people trapped inside their own brains. They need to try to work out, like, rather than just viewing it as white noise and getting annoyed, like they need to look at what their brain's trying to say to them. If they're like that, if they're that like disgruntled or like I don't know, anxious and stuff after spending 2 weeks with themselves, then they need to make some changes or try to do something about it, because like we're going to be in this situation for a fair while, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But you know,
Speaking
everyone's
of,
different.
yeah, speaking of that, obviously, without the gigs and all that sort of jazz, what can people do who love bugs? What can they do currently right now to support you guys?
Take care of themselves and like prioritize their families and other stuff. Like music's a passion and it's a privilege and it's an entitlement. There are a lot of smaller artists who, I was going to say, they probably need your support, but realistically, they probably like. I don't want to sound hypocritical because we're lucky to be in our position, but the way a business as a band works from our level down effectively in terms of like scale, for the most part, you're just investing and reinvesting what you're making, like in terms of gig fees and merchandise. You're not making money. I've never made money off music in 12 years that I've played it. It's just a reinvestment in a small business where you're trying to grow to the point where one day maybe, hopefully, you can. But that's
Yeah,
not the idea. So
I feel like
what I'm
that's not
getting,
the goal if you enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's like hopefully the basis of a small business. Why someone starts a cafe is because effectively they love food and produce, and eventually money comes into it and you learn all those things. But anyway, the roundabout point that I guess I'm trying to get to is that when the revenue streams stop, the expenses stop. If we're not touring, we're not buying flights. If we're releasing music costs money, but that's something that you can manage if you're, I guess, a organized band, and you just have to look at your finances and go, look, how much have we got coming in and what can we spend and what can we do? It's just like any other business. So like you can still keep doing stuff and still keep generating income through merchandise, and streaming is still a revenue source. But obviously I'd say like 95% of our income over the next 6 months has been compromised. So some idea of scale, everything's gone in terms of money to do stuff. But I guess I think people being expectant or like being understanding that artists might not be able to be that productive. Like a lot of people, I've seen so many statuses as being like, oh, I can't wait for this band to like come out of isolation, or when isolation finishes, all these bands are just going to come out with concept albums and all this shit. And like, imagine all the art being created. I'm like, well, that's all well and good for you to expect people to like be creatively pouring their hearts and emotions out while you're sitting in bed watching Netflix, freaking out about not like, we still pay bills and shit, and we like having like, and for the most part, Job Seeker doesn't cover the majority of the arts industry. I'm very fortunate because I support my income through, I've worked in retail full time for years, so I'm going to be long story, I'm going to be on Job Seeker anyway, but like I'm very lucky, and I'm still getting income through that, and the band stuff basically just gets put on pause. And I'd say just try and connect with your artists by sharing stuff. Like streaming's always really cool, but you should be doing that anyway if you like music. Like that's not something you need to really encourage people to do. Like, you know, like little things like buying merch definitely helps, but I'm mindful of the fact that a lot of people aren't sure about their own financial position.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially the greater economic position that like the globe is in at the moment. So I don't want to tell people to do anything or even like really plant the seed. If they feel like they can, they know that the money, like most people know that buying a shirt from a band, especially through Bandcamp, will just go straight directly to the artist. So that kind of stuff will just help, obviously. But I think sharing, being like connecting, engaging with artists and stuff like that, like tagging them in stuff's really cool. I personally get a massive kick out of it. Like our friends, like when they get their like merch and stuff, tag us in it. They like my friend's little kid was dancing around on a couch yesterday in a new Bugs shirt, and was
I saw that. Like, did you repost that? Because that was cute as.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's so sick. Like, I guess seeing that definitely gives you a buzz, and I think the thing that I love, and I you know, every interaction I've ever had with you has always been a positive one, and even down to, you know, you can't fake who you are for an hour conversation, and I think it's really awesome that people are going to see that. You know, even down to what can you do to support the artist? So, you know, I don't want you to buy stuff, but just share our music, share our art form, which is, that's so, to hear that from you is so, like, it's so sort of reassuring of the industry. It's so nice. You know what I mean?
A lot of people
very
wholesome.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm better. I'm just saying a lot of people aren't the same. And at the same time, they aren't the same for different reasons. Like, for example, bands at a bigger scale they have things like managers on a full-time payroll and like marketers and PR agents. These are people with kids and houses and mortgages to pay that rely on those bands for a full-time income. So some bands actually do have to push themselves and promote themselves in a way that is, I guess, more capitalist in its nature. But having seen the cause and effect of what it's actually achieving in terms of that's how a bigger band pays the bills and puts food on the table, I think, that like I'm wary of criticism in terms of other people. It's just what works for us because we're an independent band, and we're lucky being independent. We can just basically go pause on expenses, and we're so lucky. Our manager as well, she's just incredibly supportive in terms of that. A lot of bands and managers would be like, you have to just keep going, and we'll drive ourselves into debt to take advantage of the situation. She's just so pro-human that like that's what we're all about. If we're not doing it to take care of each other and for the right moral reasons, it defeats the purpose for all of us. And none of us are in this for money. Otherwise we would have been accountants or like been a half-assed band where we just don't really take chances, I guess. And again, like even like I'm not going to get into too much detail, but things like the Wax tour, we're pretty much like break even financially on that anyway. So it's like, we're not losing money by that being delayed. It's just like a pause on everything kind of thing. And it will happen. Gigs are going to come back.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
this stuff is going to settle down. People are just
and I think it's going to
out.
be huge. It's going to be huge when it comes back. Like I honestly cannot wait to get out and listen to some live music. And I think it's going to be almost a refresh, and everyone's going to it's going to have that live music refresh. Everyone's going to be back into it again and love it.
Me too.
You know?
Like the economy is obviously like going to take a massive hit, and it's not going to be as simple as like tickets won't sell as well, rah. But at the same time, I think that will be offset by people relearning the value of music through this period and beyond. And really, this isolation's made me realize how much I value human interaction, even if I would have thought I was a hermit. Like I'm pretty socially.
Nah, mate,
socially,
I feel that 100%. Yeah,
and
usually
now,
I love being inside, but
to
I'm like, same. And that's odd for me because I don't like it that much.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. You're like, oh, now I've got all this time at home and I'm forced to be here. It's kind of sucks.
It's not as fun.
People are going to be like thirsting for it, and they already are. And it's going to be so euphoric, that first gig when everyone's just like back.
Freedom.
It's so cool.
Man. Hey, dude, we've done 55 minutes, mate. A little bit over what I thought we'd do. It's been unreal, man. I've literally loved. We could chat for another 2 hours if I wanted to, but I feel like I probably shouldn't do that. But Hey, man, Bugs, how can we find you? Love it. Plug it. Go for it. Shoot it out there.
Just go on. I guess Bandcamp or. Go on Spotify, go on whatever music service is convenient to you. Just give it a listen. It'll be on the Bugs. And hopefully you like it. If you do, maybe show a friend. If you don't, then that's cool too. Like I don't really mind.
No, I'm gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna keep doing it. So hopefully.
Thanks, man.
Stay safe and wash your hands if you're listening.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Just get clean so we can get out of here.
Yeah, there's much bigger priorities than my band right now. So just take care of yourselves and don't freak out too much.
100%, man. Thank you so much. Stay there because I'll chat to you once I finish this off. But thanks, guys. Thanks, Connor. Guys, it's been the Inner City Hermit podcast. If you like what you're seeing, obviously I'm not going to say it again. Go subscribe and like and do all that stuff on social media. But just do what Connor said. Wash your damn hands, you grubs.
Yeah, do that, please.
Thanks, fella. Appreciate it, man.